Okay, I'm joined by the Cage Warriors lightweight champion, George Hardwick. George, how you doing, man? How's everything up in Barra?
Everything's good in the borough. Well, yeah, as good as it could be,
Yeah,
considering all the global circumstances being generally a bit fucked.
yeah,
But yeah, just had a good session, good
nice,
drill, 5 5s, and
nice.
then a bit of pork and some apple crumble.
Sounds good. Um, Friday night, 22nd of July at the Indigo. Think back to that night. What are the thoughts, the emotions that stand out?
It feels like a weird dream. You know when you have a that whole week feels like a weird dream. You know how you have a dream and you end up in one place and then you end up in another, and you can't really connect the events
Mm,
when you've had a dream and it's all weird and blurry. It's like that now.
yeah.
Because at the start of the week there was that just ridiculous heat wave. Uh,
Oh
it
yes,
was
it
like
was that
40
week. It
degrees.
was that week, wasn't it? Yeah.
I remember I was trying to chill out and I was playing some Resident Evil 4 on my Switch. I would know I would notice I'd be playing it. Some enemies would pop out and sweat would just start dripping. And then I'd get rid of all the enemies, kill all the enemies, and it'd be a quiet bit again, and I'd stop sweating. So it was just that warm that the stimulus of some enemies popping up on screen was enough to start making me
Mm,
sweat. Anyway, that was the start of the week. Uh, just it was weird getting down to London because the trains were a bit knackered because the heat wave had been messing with the lines. So Harry had to drive, and it's me, Harry, and Leon in the car. I think start working out on the morning of the fight, and I just think, you know what? It's a sea shanty kind of day. Listening to sea shanties, and the first time I see Pete, our coach Peter Irvin, he comes into the hotel room on the day the sea shanty's going, and then everything's just hazy. I remember being in. I just have that vivid memory of being in the back of the bus with my girlfriend, and I still hadn't had time to change out my fight shorts, and I still had my cup on, and I'm still bleeding. It's all just very, it's dreamlike. You can't like connect each event to the other.
yeah. Has the victory sunk in yet, though? You've had 3 months to kind of process it nearly.
See, it's a weird thing where that was my life. Preparing for that was my life every day for months on end because of all the cancellations and
Mm,
rebookings, and it was a long fight camp for that.
yeah.
And it sunk in. It was enjoyable. I still get a really good feeling of, oh yeah, I'm the Cage Warriors champ. I remind myself that sometimes. But you just kind of think about the next thing.
Yeah.
Once you're recovered, you think, well, what's the next thing?
So what is the next thing, man? You said you were keen to defend rather than wait for that UFC call like so many Cage Warriors champions get. So how are we looking? Are we any closer to that first defense?
I'm not sure at the minute.
Hmm.
So,
No
you
talks
know,
with Graham as to when we might see you back in there?
there's been a few talks here, but I'm just staying ready if I'm needed for a defense or if there's a UFC opportunity.
Yeah,
I'm just staying ready for it.
yeah, of course. Um, is there a specific opponent, say if we're staying in Cage Warriors, is there a specific opponent you're thinking that could be next? Because it looked like Figlak was an option, then he went to the UFC. So is there anyone in mind right now?
Um, Not a lot in mind, because then the next one after him was Sadari, but Sadari just got beat
Hmm.
by Figlak, and then I think McColgan, by the sounds of it, he's retired. He seems to have retired. I think he would have come back if he was going to come back. You never know, because I never expected Kyle Driscoll to be the one I fought for the title.
True.
When
So
I got signed to fight Mehdi Ben Lakhdar way back when in December, or I signed that in November, I'd never have thought you're going to end up winning the belt against some lad from AKA who's going to come from America, who's a wrestler. I would have never thought that.
yeah.
At that time, I think, well, it's Big Lack, it's McColgan, and it's Ben Lakhdar. So you never really know.
So has that made you think, oh wow, we need to like pay attention to these guys on the US shows as well more? Is that something in your mind now?
Yeah, yeah, you have to, because I'm going to have to look through all the San Diego events, keep an eye on the lightweights, because, the crossovers are very real now.
Yeah. course. You know that firsthand. Of course, your brother Harry has a big fight coming up. Want to talk about him and really being able to go through this sport because it's a tough sport, not just physically but mentally as well. How beneficial do you feel it is to be able to go through the ups and downs together, obviously with someone so close, going through the exact same thing?
It's the ups and downs are huge, and it's just an everyday thing where there's no conscious decision to train, and I take that for granted because there's always that second person. There's always Harry, and I think because we've just been doing this back and forth, I always train because Harry's training. Harry's always training because I'm training. That it's never ever a decision, and I take that for granted. Having someone second there, I can always just ask immediately about a technique, about training structure, about anything.
Mm, yeah. Obviously, he's got a big fight in a couple of weeks, Steve Fackman. But how's everything for both of you coming into this one?
He's looking very sharp, very sharp. You know, Amable's a good guy, good opponent. He's good across the board, but nothing incredibly unorthodox.
Mm,
Yeah, Harry's very sharp.
good to hear. Obviously, the main event of that card is the featherweight title, Paul Hughes and Jordan Vucenic. But with a win, Harry's he's in a pretty good position to get in there with one of those. So seeing George Hardwick, Harry Hardwick, the Hardwick brothers, both on top of Cage Warriors with that goal, that'd be pretty special, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be big. That would cement our names across all the Palmo shops from the TS1 to
Yeah.
TS, I don't know, 12 or something.
Yeah. As a southerner, I still can't say I'm 100% sure what a Parmo is, but I'll let you yeah.
So a Palmo, it's just flattened chicken breasts, breadcrumbed, fried. Then it's topped with bechamel sauce and cheese, and then it's grilled, and you have it with garlic sauce.
Yeah. Yeah. There we go. There we go. Yeah, I've obviously never had that in my life. So there you go. You've just nailed it right there. I know about it because
It's the best dirty, high-calorie scran that there is.
yeah, I know about it because I know if you're a Middlesbrough fan at all, are you?
Yeah, I don't keep up with the football as much because
Oh,
I just watch. All my sports consumption is MMA and Japanese people kickboxing.
yeah, sounds great, right? But
Well, you know, up the borough and all that.
yeah, what I was saying, one of the Borough players from Borough, came down to play, and he now plays for the team I support down here, Norwich. So he's talked about Palmos a lot. So I hear about Palmos from him and from the Hardwick brothers, and that's about it.
You've got to get one if you get the chance.
Yeah, I need to come up to Middlesbrough and get it. Yeah, that's the thing.
Because if
Uh,
you've got virgin senses to the Palmo, you want that first Palmo from Middlesbrough.
yeah, for sure, right. Yeah. Just to know quickly, we mentioned that featherweight title fight there. Hughes Vucenic, how do you see that one going?
I see. I'm gonna back you, Vercenich for this one. Even it's it's kind of a toss up because of how close their first fight was. It's just Vercenich is that technical. He just knows how to stay up on exchanges. Up on exchanges, he's always getting the slight advantage into the next exchange. He's very clever with that. But
Yeah,
it is a toss up. It's a close fight.
yeah. And how do you feel you match up against those guys, stylistically? Because obviously, featherweight champ, one of them's going to be in that position. There's a possibility that, champ versus champ, that's a common thing these days. Stylistically, how do you think you match up with those guys?
So it'd be fucking good striking on either one.
Yeah.
But Chenik has a good Thai style, and I'd love to fight that because you don't see a lot of that really tidy Thai style in MMA.
Hmm.
And Paul Hughes has really tidy boxing. So
Yeah.
both great strikers.
Cool. One thing I want to touch on before we finish here, the walkout song. What's the story there? How did you settle on Pat Benatar? Because honestly, it works so well. I love it.
So before I fought Truman, which was the return to Cage Warriors, a couple weeks out, I'd watched that movie Nobody. You know, it's got Bob Odenkirk
Mm. Yeah,
from
yeah.
Better Call Saul. And it's kind of like a goofy John Wick. And there's a car chase. There's a car chase in the movie where he pushes a cassette in, and it's Heartbreaker by Pat Benatar. And I watched that movie with my girlfriend at the cinema, and I thought, you know what, that could be an entrance on that. And
Yeah.
I did it once and I just thought, yeah, that's good. Did it twice just because I couldn't think of another entrance song, and now it's stuck. It's just association with it. I could listen to that song at any time. It's kind of like shit. It like triggers something in me.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great song. It hypes me up. I like, yeah. And when I think of that, I think George Hardwick at this point. So there you go, right?
Yeah, maybe that could be my nickname, Heartbreaker Hardwick.
That's perfect, man. That's perfect. You've nailed it. Um, okay, just finally we got some big fights this week in the UFC. We'd love to get some picks. Charles Oliveira, Islam Makhachev. How do you see that one going down?
I've got to, I've got to put my eggs in the Charles Oliveira basket. I love him. He's possibly my favorite fighter. One of the things I really love about Charles Oliveira is because I'm a big nerd into Japanese kickboxing, and Masaki Noiri, one of my favorite strikers ever, won this tournament where it was like 3 fights in one night, and he blitzed through people. It was amazing. And I'm going about my day. I'm scrolling through Instagram, and there's this big wall of text of Charles Oliveira congratulating Masaki Noiri. I just thought, whoa, he watches all the same nerd weeb kickboxing that I do. So, and now I watch a bit of Charles Oliveira. I can see where he's taking different things with the knees. You know, Masaki Noiri's a big like fight with the knees. There's loads of stuff he takes from him. Like, oh yeah, I can see that now. Yeah, I love Charles Oliveira. There's a lot of unknowns about Makhachev because he hasn't fought the same level of competition. Oliveira has fought best fighter in the world after best fighter in the world. Makhachev hasn't had the same activity, same level of competition.
Yeah.
So he could be just out of this world, leap and bound, better in some areas than we think, or he could be a lot worse in other areas. I think when he fought Davi Ramos, it was probably the best jiu-jitsu guy he fought. It was a very uneventful fight, and I don't think he really shot any takedowns or committed to them. He was just tried to outstrike him by like 8 strikes a round,
Yeah.
which is a way to win. But I don't know if he's going to be as confident to try and take Oliveira down.
Aljamain Sterling, TJ Dillashaw. How do you see that one going down?
I think that could be a weird fight. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Sterling gets a quick finish if he gets to the back. I could see that working out for him, but I feel like there could be a lot of weird kind of like scruffy stance switching, kicking exchanges where they're throwing kicks that don't really line up. Maybe they'll land one, throwing punches that kind of scuff each other, and then one ends up with a decision. It could be a very tricky fight in terms of striking wise. It could just be one of them visually unappealing fights.
Mm. Yeah. And finally, we've obviously got Piotr Yan and Sean O'Malley.
See, this is a tricky one for me. It's like I'm a big stan for Piotr Yan because everybody is like, well, you can't high guard in MMA. You've got to kind of move your head loads and use loads of footwork and all this and that. And then Petr Yan comes with that tight guard and active defense where he's just parrying, blocking, staying really tight. And that was a big moment for me when I was watching him. So he's a big influence to me. But there's this feeling that now it's a 3-round fight. O'Malley might just be able to edge round 1 and 2 just by like small numbers and then survive the 3rd round. He might just get blasted out the water, but I've got this weird feeling for O'Malley.
Interesting, man. O'Malley, like a lot of people, you know, his striking is really crisp, and obviously Yan has just looked pretty much perfect in everything by that second Aljamain fight and that one moment in the first Aljamain fight, of course. But you know, I think it's a really interesting fight. Obviously, yeah, obviously Sean's got like the reach, he's got the length on him as well.
And just a thought on that is Petr Yan likes to make his reads. He likes to block. He likes to see what someone's doing. But then O'Malley he kind of style switches almost.
Yeah.
From one stance to the other, and then he changes his tempo. So that, you know, if you spend 2 minutes getting your reads on someone, and then suddenly they're doing something completely different, it might be tricky. Yeah. Logically, I'm thinking Yan should blast through him, but I can see an O'Malley split decision.
Cool. Right, I want to thank you for the time today, George. best of luck in a couple of weeks with Harry's fight. I'm gonna be there just like I was in July. And hope we see you back in the cage soon, man.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
the
for
time.
having me on.
Yep, thanks for the time, man.